Will your man stop? No.
Will your man stop? No. Will your man stop? No.
It's videos like this that remind me of how uncomplicated being a human actually is.
Not really. We're the only species with pattern recognition complex enough to allow for videos like these. Subjectively experiencing this pattern recognition may seem simple, but the process that allows for it is anything but. I love the term nerd. It's an attempt by people made to feel insecure by other people's knowledge or intelligence to make it seem like a bad thing to be informed and well-spoken by referring to informed and well-spoken people with a pejorative term. Obviously, it's a shitty attempt, because informed people aren't dumb enough to care.
I'm only 9 years old. I simply tried to give a personal opinion to this world. Face of never-ending sadness and humility.
And I gave my opinion back. That's how a conversation works. You shouldn't expect to be well received when you insult people, so for the future, don't insult people. Saying "I don't mean to offend" before insulting somebody doesn't make you seem like much less of a jerk. Please keep that in mind.
Predator.
I agree with you and all but. Nerd.
I hate reading out loud. We up though.
Search up the Dunning-Kruger effect. You are right near the top of the first petal Mao.
The Dunning-Kruger effect pertains to specific topics, typically ones with scientific fields of study. The only scientific field of study I touched on was cognitive psychology, and all I said was that the processes that allow for pattern recognition are complex. I never pretended to know anything about those processes. By the way, the Dunning-Kruger effect, at least as understood by most people, is fictitious. It is not actually true that an ignorant person is more likely to have greater confidence in their beliefs than an informed one. Edit. Oh, and the top of the peak is redundant. The peak is the top.
Bro, nobody's being impressed by your long words and sentences. You can talk like the rest of us.
Why do you care about how I choose to express myself? Also, why do you think that I care, or should care, about what other people think about how I express myself? Whether I impress anybody is irrelevant as long as I adequately get my thoughts across.
Dekoren abenträgen.
Pie crumbs.
You should probably do something productive with all the potential you have instead of trying to explain things to random people on the internet.
By saying you should be productive instead of doing X, you either assume that doing X and being productive are mutually exclusive, which obviously doesn't apply to making YouTube comments, or you assume that one should make sure that all of their activities are productive, in which case you are being hypocritical. It also assumes that X isn't itself productive, and I'd argue there are productive aspects to making YouTube comments.
Yes, but in the comment I mentioned, with your level of understanding with things, you have the potential to do something better than to just writing comments on YouTube with people. I simply don't have this level of intelligence as you do, since I'm just 13 and on vacation.
As I pointed out, you are making the assumption that I can't both be productive and make YouTube comments. You say I should do something better than just writing YouTube comments. But that's not all I do. I have a life, you know, even if I considered making YouTube comments an unproductive vice, and I don't necessarily consider it that way. There are still vices that constitute way more of my time, mainly video games and smoking weed, and thus hinder my ability to be productive far more. Do you tell every pothead who plays video games they should stop just playing video games and do something productive? Probably not. It seems like you save it for when people engage in unproductive behavior that you don't like.
I have never once stated that I did not like your YouTube comments. They are quite informative, but like, how do you get yourself to write all this stuff?
My comments actually aren't very informative. They mainly consist of me rambling about my opinions. You can produce the illusion of being informative by having a good vocabulary and utilizing it well. Part of why I can communicate so effectively is certainly because I spend so much time writing YouTube comments, and I care about getting across my thoughts accurately. Unfortunately, as evidenced by this comment thread. A large portion of the youth think I'm pretentious or a nerd because I talk the way I do. That's to be expected though. Every generation was like that when they were the youth. Most of them will grow out of being judgmental and self-centered, at which point they'll realize the advantages of being a nerd.
Anyways, I'ma leave you alone now cause there's nothing really happening except you replying with paragraphs of stuff whenever someone says something, so bye.
Why are you so mad? Oh, and if you're not mad, then feeling superior, if that's better. Bruh, he's kind of right though, who you replied to. Not only that, but he complimented your potential.
You should stop mistaking polite disagreement for anger or pretentious entitlement. Not everybody who addresses their disagreements in lengthy and wordy comments has bad intentions. Any emotion you see in what I say is coming from you, and in what way is he kinda right? I feel like I offered some pretty good rebuttals to his points, and he seemingly agrees with me.
Okay, fair, but why do you feel the need to answer every comment that says something negative about you instead of just ignoring them, and instead answer the positive comments? Or at least answer some of the positive. I literally complimented your potential, don't argue this, and now you answer only the one where I know your answers are feisty? This actually kind of proves my point. You seemingly can't resist answering a comment that contradicts you. Try it on this one. On this particular comment I didn't note any negative emotions by the way, except for the line slightly indicative of me being angry myself, which is false, and a poor presumption. However, this also could be interpreted as the emotions you presume me to have are simply presumptions that feel right to you, which is true.
I primarily address statements I disagree with because those statements are the ones I have the most to say about. I only respond to a statement I agree with if I think I have something to add. Otherwise I would just be restating whatever that statement was or merely expressing my agreement with it. Either way, I wouldn't be saying very much. Engaging with opposing ideas is not only how your mind evolves, but how society's mind evolves. Primarily engaging with statements you agree with hinders your ability to replace worse beliefs with better ones. I'm not saying there's no value in engaging with things you agree with. There is. I'm just saying I generally extract more value out of conversations that are in disagreement. They expose me to ideas I haven't heard, which cause me to think in ways I hadn't before and expand my thoughts. This is opposed to conversations in agreement, where I am, mostly, exposed to things I already thought or believed. I admit, I chose my words poorly. I'm glad you recognize two possible ways to take that. And the second you listed is what I intended. Rather than coming from you, I should have specified your interpretation.
It's funny how this happened on a video of funny square-filled little white box. Literally us.
Serious head with monocle.
Conversations emerge anytime the opportunity to communicate is present. I've seen rather sophisticated conversations about quantum physics in the comments of video game OSTs.
Lmao. I've actually looked at quantum physics myself, but on an OST. Major changes in topic happen within the bounds of conversation. I struggled on the wording.
You've really been here for 5 days arguing with children borrowed their life.
Why is the age of the person I argue with relevant? Do you hold that communicating ideas to young people is just a waste of time, and we should only bother conversing with people with our own level of understanding that is rather close-minded?
Why is everybody fighting over unrelated topics? Go outside, don't touch grass, maybe with the way I am ignoring you all.
There's no greater irony I can think of than the people who parrot god-awful Twitter lingo like touch grass and ratio judging other people for not having lives.